What's up, Mad World? It's me, Coach Sess. Hey, I was doing some research and accidentally came upon Fight Lab 23, Coyote Joe's, Charlotte, North Carolina. It was headlined by Keith Rockstar Richardson taking on DeJuan Owens. Started playing around and found this card very interesting. So there were 12 fights, 24 fighters. And I think this goes to show you something about the quality of the show and also something about the quality of the fighters that took participation on the event. So the overall record of all the fighters combined was 51-39. And so this gives them about, a winning ratio of about 57%. And the reason that's important is because from my discoveries, I feel like a show that does close to that 60% ratio is pretty much a good show. And I wasn't there. This would have been about 2012, so I would have known who Kenny Letts was and Michael Allen. I didn't participate in this particular show. And so I just started studying the numbers behind the numbers. 12 of the 24 fighters will go on to hold championships as pros or amateurs. That's a pretty good ratio. Just based on this one card out of North Carolina. And 9 of those champions would defend their titles at some point. And I think that's important because Kevin Ferrant actually brought this to my attention at one point, that everybody just was going after these championships and everybody wanted to be a champion, and guys had upside down records like 3-7, and they were fighting for titles, and at what point do we diminish the value of the title when we continue on with such behavior? So I think Kevin was right in that regard, and I've since that time have made sure that if my guys are fighting for titles, that they're fighting like quality guys. They're fighting other champions, as much as we can get our hands on that type of a matchup. But out of those 9 champions who would defend their titles, 7 of these guys on this card would become Fight Lab champions. I thought that was impressive. And names like Marcus Flood, Tony E. Rogers, Trey Singleton, Keith Rockstar Richardson, DeJuan Owens, Dylan Kayla, he was on the card, and Lawrence Dennis was on the card. So it took some interesting notes. I didn't grab notes for everybody, just some things that I thought that stood out. And Lawrence Dennis really had an interesting story. So Lawrence Dennis, after participating at Fight Lab 23, 1 year, 2 months later, after this event, he would win his first title in amateur mixed martial arts. He would fight 3 amateur Fight Lab champions as an amateur, and 2 times he would be the challenger. He would complete his amateur career before going pro at 6-5. Now check this. He fought 11 fighters combined who have a minimum of 36 championship matches. And I say that because you can look at 6-5 and go, well, that guy's average. That guy's mediocre. And that's where you would make your mistake. You take a guy who is 6-5 and he's fought so many guys who fought in 36 combined championship matches. Lawrence Dennis didn't have a choice but to be good. Even if he's the worst of them, he's better than most. 7 of those 11 were multiple time champions. So sometimes if I'm adding this right, some of these guys, to get to 36, some of these guys had to be 3- and 4-time champions. And I say I'm confident in that because My own teammate Ricky Saxton fought Lawrence, and I know for a fact that Ricky held 3 titles. So it's pretty impressive. And of these guys that Lawrence fought, 3 of them would eventually become Fight Lab champions. And it's another reason why I'm bringing this up is because, you know, Fight Lab is just that, it's that flagship of MMA, and I think sometimes we disregard it. People don't understand, like, the what Kevin Ferran and Michael Allen and Kenny Letson and whoever else has matched some of these shows, Blue, whoever's had some input. You don't understand that for our state, you know, we're talking like creme de la creme. Now, if I get some of this wrong, keep in mind that I had about 2 main sources that I pulled this information from, and there were probably maybe 2 or 3 more that I could have went to, but just getting this info was quite detailed and a bit of an arduous task, but I was curious. I wanted to know. Going down to this other little details that I thought was pretty interesting. Trey Singleton had been in 5 fights as an amateur that was scheduled for 5 rounds. There's guys in the UFC who have not fought that many 5-round fights. That's pretty impressive. As an amateur, he's fighting 5-round fights for championship matches. He's being scheduled anyway, and I think 3 went the distance. But oddly enough, after fighting on Fight Lab 23, Trey Singleton, a year and 2 months later, just like Lawrence Dennis, he wins his first title. A good stat to know, Trey Singleton in Fight Lab as an amateur was 6-0-1 versus opponents with a combined record of 27-10. So to put that in perspective, I think that Trey was only 9 fights. You know, I think he was 7-2, 7-2-1. But you know, this guy's a 7-2 fighter taking on guys with enough experience, you know, to accumulate to 27-10. So he was always outmatched, but found a way to remain victorious. It's pretty impressive. Another guy that's on the card, Cleveland Mclean. And I wanted to bring this up because Cleveland Mclean, Dewan Owens, Keith Richardson, and Dylan Kayla are like the only fighters that fought on this card to win pro titles. That's, again, pretty impressive. So after we get past, you know, half your card has championship quality, and then a third of that, you know, have all won titles as pros as well. It's pretty impressive. Dewan Owens, Keith Richardson, and Dylan Kayla, they all went on to win Fight Lab titles. Again, the flagship, in my opinion. And then Cleveland Mclean at this point had moved on down to American Top Team, but he came back to North Carolina to pick up a North Carolina promotion title with Fight Night. And the reason I know that is because he was my teammate. So pretty good stuff. And let's see, Keith Richardson is the only current Fight Lab champion from this card. He's 12-2 as a pro on Fight Lab. Keith overall as a pro has fought 8 former opponents who fought in Bellator or fought in the UFC. And you go down and look at Keith's record, you know, you got Devon Blackshear, Tony Gravely, Bassett, and there's some others. You know, just go take a look at it. 8 fighters that he's fought has been in the UFC or fought in Bellator, and of course Keith himself has fought in Bellator. So a lot of good quality on this card. Dewan Owens, his first title win, pro or am, was a Fight Lab title, and it came at Fight Lab 57. And to this day, based on the information from this card, he is the most experienced fighter with well over 50 fights in MMA. Good stuff, man. We have some really good guys. I don't think they get the credit that they truly deserve. I think they've done a lot and will continue to do more. If you're familiar with the last Fight For It X or Fight For It 10 card with Keith Richardson, showed up as a coach and walked away undefeated on a card where he put 3 fighters on the card. Highest stand on the last 2 cards they've been on, last 2 to, I want to say 2 of, somewhere between 2 and 4 cards, they're undefeated. And you have to be in the game to understand like how deep that is, because especially when you're fighting on cards where you don't make the matches, you don't get to dictate much of anything, so you're always on somebody else's turf, you're always doing things on somebody else's terms. It is not easy to walk away with 3 and 4 victories on one card like that. So anybody else who tries to promote themselves as being this and being that, and they're not bringing up the highest stand MMA, and they're not bringing up the Modern Warrior MMA, and they're not talking about the champions that have come out of Fight Lab, the guys that made it to the UFC, going on to the Bellators. If they're not talking about those guys, they're pulling your leg. They're trying to deceive the public, and it's so much of that going on in MMA because we're in the social media world. Everybody just wants to be a name, but they have no work to support. They have no body of work to support anything that they claim or anything that they're saying. All you got to do, though, is go check it out for yourself. The information is out there, and it is a little bit, distracting because there's so much of it. But hit me up. I'm Coach Sess, and I'll help you find it. So if you just follow this link, hit me up, YouTube, everything's Sess Stevenson, and I'll tell you what I think about a particular school, a particular gym, a particular fighter. I'll give it to you real. I am Coach Sess, and you've had words with the Mad Coach.